Hey there guys, this is Obsidian Show. I've got another video for you today. And here we're looking at some recent changes, actual buffs to some control artifacts that are presently on test server. So we've got Amulet of Rao and BOP Commlink. So the changes that have made, in addition to basically just your control debuffs having a higher percentage and spreading to more targets with Rao, they've added and deal damage over time to 1, 2, 4, 7 additional enemies equal to a percentage of your VIT and a percentage of your might for Amulet of Rao. So that there's no extra ability to hit, it's just basically free damage. Before I get into the spreadsheet, we'll break that down now, exactly what that'll look like. And with BOP Concerns, you'll see they've added a Supercharge Generator to it. So I'll have a link in the description and the comment section to skip to exactly to that section because there's some nuances there with that I want to show in greater detail. But the other addition is deals damage to the target nearby enemies equal to 35.2% of your VIT and 8% of your might. So BOP Concerns already dealt a little bit of damage on its initial attack, but now that's increased, and they've had like a scaling to it as well. So you'll see that as well in the spreadsheets. But so they've increased the damage on Bird's Blitz, they've added a Supercharge Generator, and now it also applies a power interaction to your target. So at the presently on test server, that is not an AoE power interaction. You'll just see it apply to one target, which I'll show in a moment on the sparring targets. But that may change or may spread. I'm not too sure, but right now it only applies it to one target. So without further ado, let's jump first to sparring targets. We'll break down exactly what changed, and then we'll jump into the spreadsheets to break down those numbers. Okay, firstly, just to kind of give a brief overview of the changes. So we've got Amulet of Rao applying damage over time per debuff, and then we've got BOP Concerns having the base damage increased and empowering power action. So first, let's just kind of show Bird's Blitz here. So my target's right here. Bird's Blitz, as you can see now, that one target out of the 5 has the power interaction. And then technically with Bird's Blitz, we'll show it individually with Rao first just to make it a little bit more sense. So basically I would use a damage debuff, and now you're going to see those additional procs of prec damage or white damage numbers. That's the actual Amulet of Rao overtime damage. It's the same thing. If I use another debuff, it's always going to give me those 3 procs. So you can still use the debuffs individually to apply that extra damage to the Rao, or with Bird's Blitz, you can just hit Bird's Blitz, and you'll see there all the additional numbers being applied from that Amulet of Rao damage. So nothing you have to do. Same thing, my one target got the power interaction. So those are the changes right now. So let's jump into the spreadsheet, look at those numbers a little bit closer, and then this super generation. Okay, so taking a closer look at the Amulet of Rao changes. Now in terms of the damage spec for this, I'm using a typical troll loadout. So I've got Claw, Amulet, and BOP Concerns. My might is going to be on the higher side because I'm wearing technically this is still full controller gear, but I do have might generator mods, everything else for might. In terms of VIT, I still have VIT augments in this test. This is full controller gear, so that's why this is towards the higher end of what you're expecting, because I've also got max skill points in might, max skill points in VIT. So really, in terms of these numbers, you would have to be full CR14 controller gear, have full augments, full generator mods. So that's why this test is on the higher end of what those numbers you should be expecting. So right now I did 2 tests on the 5 targets. I know the damage technically on 200 is going to be higher with the 7, the extra 2 enemies. Or 3 technically, from 4 to 7, but really on average there's not too many times you run into groups of 8 adds. Usually it's like 3 to 5 in that kind of range, so that's why I did the 5 targets to show that comparison, and then also single target. So as you can see, like I said before, the procs will not crit. It just is basically just straight percentage numbers. On single target from rank 120 to 160, I saw a 15.9% increase in the damage, and rank 160 to 200 I saw 33.7%, and it's pretty much the same. If I was on 5 targets or 1 target, it's pretty much exactly those percentages right on. So as you can see, it's not amazing numbers. I mean, this is over 20 hits. So 20 uses of the debuffs of Bird's Blitz. So that's why I would apply to all 3 targets at once. So, I mean, it is bonus damage. That's really what to take away from this. And really, you're not speccing too much into it. Like I said, I'm already spec might. I'm already max VIT, over 100k VIT. I mean, technically, it'd be a little bit higher if you're using like your Tetra buff inside to buff your might, your Claw buff to have extra VIT. So certainly these numbers could be higher when you're actual in content and have the augment buffs and artifact buffs. But just think of this as bonus damage because you're going to have Rao equipped always anyway for your debuffs. So now they just do some extra damage. So it's not so much you're now all of a sudden like a battle controller. It's basically just free damage. So taking a look at the BOP Commlink numbers, I broke this down at 186 for might, or 186k on this was on live server to get the baseline was 171, test server is 1444. So technically I was 300 might higher, but I really don't feel that's enough to make that much of a difference. So this is testing on EU server. So I averaged out at 11k damage. It also saw crits, which now the crits are completely gone from test server. So on test server, pretty much the same might. I went from an average damage of 11k to almost pretty much a fixed damage of 18k based on those stats. And then the Amulet of Rao ticks was extra 321k out of that 25 power usages. And then base damage for single target testing, my average was about 29k. And then I jumped up to 45k. So really taking those numbers and breaking down what they'll actually mean is that just equipping BOP Concerns like you normally would, which you're going to have anyways, for your buff controller rotation or not so much a battle troll rotation, but certainly a buff one or a power one. It's a 57.4% increase on AoE damage, and it's a 56.9% increase in single target damage by doing nothing. Like I said, you're already using the Bird Splits ability. You're just taking advantage of your increased spec stats, basically. So obviously, this case is where higher skill points will come into play because you'll be able to spec into your might tree as well as maxing out your bit tree already. So let's jump over, and I want to show the Supercharge Generator as well. So with respect to the major change to BOP Concerns and that it being a Supercharge Generator now, comes into play because it will stack with everything else that we have already presently in the game. So Bird Splits, we have a 3-second cooldown. Every other Supercharge Generator is going to be 6 seconds. So we already have the advantage of that, being able to use it nearly twice as much and being able to regenerate the same amount of Supercharge between both. It's not like, 6 seconds gave you X amount and then because this is 3 seconds, they halved it. No, that's probably something recommended because as you see in the clip here, the amount of supercharge we can get, when certainly you can combine it with Scrap the Soul Cloak, you can combine it with allies for Black Adam for the power of A10. So we'll see just an example here. I'm on 0 supercharge. You'll see in the log there, Bird's Blitz was 198 supercharge, and if I do Stasis Field, same thing. You saw Stasis Field 198 supercharge, so it's the exact same. So if I just kind of keep going back and forth, as you see, 3 seconds, I can be able to use this twice before I can use Stasis Field again. And then you're seeing my Battle Drone supercharge go up. I'm not using like weapon combos. I'm not using any of the powers that I typically would in a rotation. And you can still see how fast I'm earning this 5,000 supercharge. And already with BOP Concerns, because it provides the 3D buffs, you don't really have to sacrifice anything in your rotation to be able to use it. Because A, you're already using it for the 3D buffs and all your other stacking debuffs. And now I've got the Battle Drone, so we can pop it again. Kind of keep going. But yeah, like I said, you don't have to sacrifice anything. If anything, if you're dropping the finisher, because you won't be able to run Batman Who Laughs for the Toxic Encore, so you're dropping the finisher, if you choose to. But you drop the finisher, then you just put the extra supercharge in Stasis Field wherever you're running. And then you have to remember as well, if you're mental actually has a back down for an accelerated cooldown mod on Horrific Visage, so you can even use that a little bit faster. And then we've got Battle Drone again. And in this example, I don't even have Battle Drone in the head mod. I just didn't get a chance to replace it before I started recording. But that would even be more supercharged regen. But as you can see, it's no consequence whatsoever to be able to do this back and forth. Just rotating these two powers. And it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't interfere with my rotation because already I'm applying the 3D buffs from Bird's Blitz. So we're entering into, yes, they got rid of EOG for Gemini regen, but now we've pretty much got the self regen back just with having our own BOP Commlink now being a Supercharge Generator. So there's one other clip I want to show. We'll get to it here. So the more concerning thing to me at the moment, so presently as of this recording on test server and as far as we know from what the developers have said in the forums, as you can see I'm in healer stance, electric healer, but I can also equip BOP Concerns. So despite it saying Bird's Blitz controller role in brackets Supercharge Generator, you would think that B.O.P Commlink can only be used by controllers, and Bird's Blitz can only be used by controllers for the Supercharge Regen or the Supercharge Generator, but that is not the case. So as you can see, I'm electric, and I'm obviously saving up for group changes. I can use static push, as you saw, static push 198 supercharge, and then Bird's Blitz, same thing, 198. So it's the exact same thing as what a controller do for any other role, tank, healer, DPS, doesn't matter. Presently is that we can use Bird's Blitz just to generate as much supercharge. Same thing with like Black Adam, with Scrap the Soul Cloak. And now the advantage here is that healers can now use Eye of the Gemini. So once we get, we'll just keep doing this to, as you can see, how long it'll take to grab full. Obviously it's going to be a bit more power compared to other roles. But same thing, a healer would be clipping this in their normal rotation with their heals, so it wouldn't matter. Bird's Blitz, Galvanize, static push, etc. So obviously the healers can use more power, but in this case, it's all about the regen itself. So what the regen they lost from being able to spam like a 5k with Eye of the Gemini, now they make up with being able to technically use Bird's Blitz, at least how it sits on test. So, I'm not here to rain on anyone's parade here, but at least I feel that this... Okay, so we earned that. I don't have Eye of the Gemini on, so let me just do that so you guys can see the green regen. So we're in combat. We're going to use Transducer. You can see the regen I'm already getting from that. And then same thing, we'll start this double Supercharge Regenerate again, and just to show you how quickly you can earn a 10k back just from that, just from one Eye of the Gemini and just using some Supercharge Generator powers. And there are other healer abilities like Nature is a common one, Water as well, where their heals also generate Supercharge Regen, so you'd be regenerating just as fast. I'm just showing just the Supercharge Generators. And just like that, I've got another 10k again. So just by using that 10k, EUG is about to run out. So as you can see, I'm more than halfway to my next transducer, just having that set up. All I did was pop one out of Gemini, and then I popped those few super generator abilities while I was waiting for EUG to finish proccing. And that could be clipped the entire time. Like I said, you don't impact your healing. So that's my concern. I truly feel that B.O.P Commlink obviously is a control artifact. I really don't think anyone would question that this is a control artifact. But being able that you can use it on all roles now, this is what I feel that it should change. Definitely stay, don't level this just because, I'm a healer, I'm going to level this for Supercharge Regen. Make sure that they haven't changed this by the time it's released, because this is on test server. But that's my thoughts right now on this. Obviously, the Supercharge Generator is great for controllers, gives them a bit more flexibility. Also, if they want to reuse like the new ally, Blue Beetle, and that kind of Supercharge Regen, but or not regen, but the drone aspect, which you'll see later in the review video. But I mean, the extra damage from B.O.P Commlink and Amulet, I mean, that's fine. I mean, that doesn't impact anything. The increased base damage on Bird's Blitz is fine as well. It's going to help that might battle trolling, as well as just in general, just some extra damage the controller can do, which without sacrificing anything for their role. But where I feel we're going to step into some gray area here is definitely with the Supercharge Generator for other roles. So you can certainly let me know how in the comments you feel about that.